Major breakthrough today after officials identified human remains discovered in a Richland County sand pit, now identified as a woman who's been missing more than 13 years. Adriana Laster.
Laster was 28 years old when she was last seen in 2011, and the investigation revealed that she was romantically involved with who is now the suspect in this case, Freddie Grant. You may remember that Grant pled guilty in 2014 to the murder and kidnapping of 15-year-old Gabby Swainson. That story making national headlines at the time.
Joining us now for a one-on-one exclusive interview here on WIS at 5:30, Richland County Coroner Naida Rutherford. I know it has been an incredibly difficult week, an incredibly busy week since these remains were discovered. So thank you for taking the time to come in and update us on this case. And even since your news conference this afternoon, you've made additional discoveries at that site.
Yes, our crew was still out there working when we did the press conference, but we wanted to make sure that the public knew what was going on. There was so much false information out there. We are always at the Richland County Coroner's Office trying to meet people where they are and telling the truth about what is going on with investigations. But since the press conference, we have found more human remains that belong to Adriana Laster.
And this, at this point, bringing some type of closure to the family, because since 2011, since they reported her missing, 6 months after that in 2012, there was no update. They heard nothing from any official, and you were able to provide that first break after more than a decade.
We made the initial notification to family on yesterday. We wanted to be 100% sure that the remains did belong to Adriana Laster, and to hear her daughter and her family talk about her, for them to share that they just wanted something, just a piece of her, so that they could know for certain that she was actually gone. The not knowing just wears you down over the years, and so they are grateful to everyone involved. They are grateful to our Richland County Coroner's Office team, our anthropology team, Dr. Bill Stevens and Dr. Maddie Atwell. So many people have come out. DNR, the Sheriff's Department's crime scene unit, their DNA lab was able to help us identify her remains. So this has been a team effort, and we are still out there working. We'll be back out there at 9:30 in the morning.
You talk about the family. When I heard you say her name in your news conference earlier today, it immediately took me back to the Gabby Swainson case, because they had connected Adriana to Freddie Grant. And I immediately remember an interview we did with her sister, who at the time said that she just kept playing the last conversation with her over and over in her head, asking her to please just come home. So I imagine just having some measure of peace is in some way a relief, but there's still so much to figure out in this case. And for people who were not here, 13 years ago, we want them to understand this sand pit was not there at the time. This was a heavily wooded area where it would have been fairly easy to conceal a body being buried.
Yes, and there wouldn't have been a smell of decomposition or anything like that, because it was not a heavily walked area. You had to know those woods, and seemingly Freddie Grant lived in the area and knew exactly where to place her so that she would not be discovered. It's very sad.
And we're also, just learning more about his background. He's still listed as a suspect in this case, at least, but I understand he has some background that if he could have done something like this, it would have made sense because of his profession.
Yes, so we discovered that he was actually a professional gravedigger and had a wide history in landscaping. So he definitely knew how to maneuver in that type of wooded area, in that type of soil. And so he would have been an expert, honestly, at burying this body.
Your team has been out there, as you mentioned, in partnership with the Richland County Sheriff's Department, DNR, SLED, so many other agencies. But this work, it was a worker out there who was digging and made this discovery, and it has been a tedious process. I mean, it is such a massive area, but you are going through it meticulously to make sure you collect everything you can.
We are going through it by hand. So we have an excavator out there now helping to dump the sand, and we are literally going through in automatic sifters and hand sifters by hand, feeling every grain of sand, looking for the smallest bits of Adriana so that we can try to make her as whole as possible.
And then at this point, where do you go from here? Because earlier today, you said the cause of death has not been determined. So what are the next steps to make a determination of how she may have died?
Well, the coroner is responsible for coming up with the cause of death, which is the medical reason that someone's heart and lungs may have stopped, and the manner of death. So we are looking for as much of her as possible so that we can try to figure out if there was strangulation, if there was broken bones, some sort of blunt force trauma to the skeleton. Soft tissue injuries won't be able to be identified at this point, but the manner of death, we can say pretty certain that it's a homicide because she did not bury herself. This wasn't a suicide. This wasn't some accidental something. She was buried underground, and we know that she could not have done that herself.
We're going to take a quick break. When we'll come back, we'll talk more about what your team will be doing next and the impact on the community, because in Elgin, you know, this case has been in and out of the spotlight, but for the people in Elgin, this has been something that they have constantly thought about, prayed about, waiting for some answers, and obviously not the outcome that they were hoping for, but just knowing that they will hopefully get justice in this case. More with Richland County Coroner Naida Rutherford right after this.